Greetings and salutations, it's Usagi here. I'm a bit nervous at the moment because I feel like I need to get my book out there just to grab some sort of garner attention for it, so that, because I'm struggling at the moment and I can't find the inspiration I once had. I've already had some people read what I have already. There's only 8 chapters thus far, but I'm at this point where I need to share and get some wider views and hopefully some support, because that's what I'm looking for. I already have people saying that this is great, continue with it, but I feel like maybe some of it is biased because my family has read it, but I know some of them aren't really into that kind of frame of mind of my book, and their reactions have been actually kind of surprising and great. But I would like to receive more feedback, just so that maybe I can be spurred on and know that this, as much as I want to write this for just for the purposes of getting my story out there, I would like to share with you the first chapter. So I might as well go for it. And I hope you enjoy and you can be honest. It might hurt me a bit, but here it goes. Anyway, this is Project Reboot, Terra, Firma, and I will read to you now the prologue and the first chapter. Prologue. Genesis. The world, planet Earth, a tiny speck revolving in the everything and the nothing. This once luscious green and blue orb harboured a clean living plethora of creatures. Over time, sentient beings rose up and created civilizations. Today, it is a very different world, consumed by mankind. The greed, the gluttony, and the lust for power has put the once sacred earth into a deep turmoil. War is rife for territory and natural resources. Governments are corrupt and ignorant to the common man's plea. But all is not tainted. Advances in science and technology has improved life, cured disease, purified water, and helped mankind understand much more about themselves and the vast universe they live in. Just as well, religion has turned to extremism in certain parts of the world. Where there is 1 step forward, there has been 10 steps back. The advance in technology has given the world the means to communicate in ways that in the past were inconceivable. But with this power of technology, the world has become a place dependent on it, hunched over laptops and PCs, glaring at mobile phones and tablet devices. With factory mass production, everything has become simple to construct and to obtain, and so mankind has lost its connection with true simplicity. The world has become vain, the media has intruded into the homes and minds of everyone, of all ages, and now shapes the way we think and perceive ourselves. We no longer think independently. A world of sheep, and the shepherds are the ones who have self-proclaimed their highest position in society. So what if all that had been accomplished by man had been eradicated, wiped from existence, nothing but a blank template, with only what is organic left behind? Why don't we find out? If I'm a bit jittery whilst I'm reading, it's because I'm as nervous as hell. But here we go. Chapter 1. New Dawn. It's a day like every other. The sounds of bustling human beings, polluting the atmosphere with their factories and automobiles, people staring down into their cold devices, judging anonymously from behind the screen, Families sat around dinner, eating their processed foods, discussing trivial matters and gossiping. Those who care for it are gawping at the latest fashions, falling over themselves for the next pair of gorgeous or trendy shoes. Swarms are inning and outing from high street shops, sipping coffee, others mulling over how their next bills are to be paid, yet squandering the money they don't have. Children listen intently, or not so, to their tutors, scrawling doodles on ruled paper. Members of high society enjoy a lifestyle others would kill for, and some even have. Pen pushers sit at their desks, writing meaningless rules and regulations to buffer their egos and to establish their sense of self-importance, doing the same thing day after day, each one looking for something to break the monotony of life. Members of Parliament jeering like children on the school playground at one another, blaming others instead of solving problems and delaying any kind of important matters with their narcissistic self-beliefs, attempting to implement their new ideals, most of which only hinder rather than help society. Criminals locked and unlocked, plotting and rotting, or just existing in the underground and in plain sight. It's your average day. It's summer, the heat welcomed on a dreary United Kingdom. All types enjoying the seasonal weather. Some reside within the comfort of the shade given by a bedroom curtain, blocking the sun's rays as they attempt to penetrate the material to fill a dark and gloomy room occupied by a reclusive young lady. Hunched over her desk, light reflected from her monitor into her glasses, steadily scrolling through pages of procrastinating material. Sighing and smiling, tutting and grimacing as she reads the encrypted scrawlings of billions of people online. Her face is a pasty pale, her eyes a fading blue, illuminated by the artificial glow of her technology. A lonely individual, distant from social interactivity, but she is 1 in 7 billion for whom life is going to change in a way no man could ever conceive. Peering over to the window, the sunshine seems strangely bright. Curious by the sudden increase in divine light shining over the land, the girl gets up from her chair and walks over to the curtains to do something rare to her indeed. Twitching the curtain aside, she gazes upon the landscape. Living within the city, smog and noise pollution are to be seen and heard all around. Music, nattering, cars honking, children screaming, crying and laughing. Nothing out of the ordinary, except the sky. The blinding light pains the girl's eyes, making her squint till focused. Everyone seemed too busy to notice. It was subtle, but bright enough for the young lady to notice. Leaning out her window, she observed the passing people below. The sky was appearing paler on the horizon, and now the brilliance of the light could no longer be ignored. The girl shielded her eyes with her hand, as did people below as they gazed up to the sky. Before anyone could panic or react, the pure white light had enveloped everything. All stood still. For a few seconds that felt like a lifetime, all man-made material had dematerialized. The girl, aware of everything, darted her eyes around the room. All that was happening was going so fast, but to her it felt like the world was dissolving in slow motion. Her personal belongings seeming to evaporate around her. The window she was leaning out of falling away to dust as everything that belonged to the earth was returned, leaving her suspended in the air. Books, tables, toilet roll, to name a few, had become the trees they once were before they were cut down and pulped for their uses. Frames, jewellery, cars, trains, planes, warehouses, anything built from raw metal had been returned to the rocks and ground they were mined from. All that was unnatural, built over generations, and had been cultivated over millennia, places of worship, monuments, ancient wonders, hospitals, emergency services, palaces, castles, and other places of significance, had all been taken by a mysterious, overwhelming glow from the heavens. Even the very clothing that had dignified humanity had been taken from them all. As quickly as it had saturated the earth in its blinding light, it had gone. All living creatures frozen in position, all standing where their homes, workplaces, and hangouts had all once stood, completely stark naked as the day they were born. Then snap. Chaos sweeps over the entire world. Screams and cries, even howls from all who had just witnessed their instantaneous downfall, as everything anyone had ever built up, saved, treasured, loved, had all disappeared and returned to the ground. Trees, mountains, meadows and rivers were all that stood before all. Mass panic, anxiety and fear infiltrated the minds of humans. Amputees reliant on blades and artificial limbs have become reduced to wailing on the grass they were now led upon. The morbidly obese exposed in all ways they could ever fear. Prison inmates free in all terrible ways. The elderly left completely vulnerable, and diseased and terminally ill left with no hope. The girl, she stood still, her arms wrapped around her body to conceal her naked flesh. Her eyes, wide open, could do nothing but stare. Though without her spectacles the distance appeared hazy. Her mind drew blank, and all the horrifying screeches and cries became white noise. Something truly incomprehensible had just happened in the blink of an eye. As the chaos unfolded in front of the girl, she slowly stepped around to look behind her. There were no remains of what she held dear, no photos, diaries, paintings, and no phone. Her apartment above an art supply shop had vanished. In a complete trance she began to walk forward, just a foot in front of the other, until she felt her foot get wet. Stepping back, she gazed down to the ground and saw her pet goldfish struggling in a pool of water seeping into the soil below. A single tear rolled down her face as she went to pick up her little golden friend, scooping up as much water as she could before it was absorbed by the new, fresh ground. Collapsing to the floor, she held on to her aquatic friend and sobbed as people rushed past her, running around aimlessly, it seemed, as they were looking for answers, shelter, somewhere to hide from their exposure. Still cupping the goldfish in her hands, led in the fetal position, all she could think of was her family she had abandoned and left behind, and the friends she had forgotten to live her life of solitude. Now she was truly alone. Her family and friends may only live in a 20-mile radius, but finding them and knowing they'll be still there had now become an almost impossible challenge. A breeze swept over the bewildered girl and awoken her from her entranced state. Gently sitting herself up, she began digging a hole between her knees, tears now streaming down both cheeks. She picked up her goldfish and gently whispered, "Goodbye, Shimmer," lowering her now deceased pet carefully into its little grave. She then scooped the soil she had unearthed back onto its delicate corpse, slowly covering its shimmering scales. The art shop manager other staff were still in the area. The girl looked to the sky, the sun now its usual shining self, breaking through a drifting cloud. Looking back to the earth, she drew a deep breath as she absorbed the magnitude of the situation, as tall trees and hilly landscapes had replaced the city skyline, and all around her was lush green fields, flowers and bushes. Pulling herself up from the ground, she stood on her feet, placing an arm in front of her chest and one hand over her groin as she noticed the shop manager and others around her. The manager was sat on the grass, his knees up to his face and his head down as he rocked back and forth, crying uncontrollably. Some of the staff were sat around the general area of where the storeroom once stood, all dumbstruck. The landlord from the pub across the street was huddled with his family, their pet dog jumping round excitedly. Members of the public shouting out for help, calling for loved ones. People trying to make sense of the impossible. "Ava," a feeble voice called out. The girl turned to see who had called her. It was the art shop manager. She had frequented there for art supplies. The guy in charge and a couple of other staff members were the only people she saw regularly, though if she could find what she needed online, Ava avoided traversing downstairs as much as she possibly could. The convenience of just stepping out for what she needed allowed her to use her creativity as it was fresh in her memory, so if she couldn't wait, she had to go. Ava gingerly stepped towards the middle-aged man. She was completely out of her comfort zone, but then so were many others. Colin?" she muttered as she approached him awkwardly. Colin was in complete awe of the situation. So much had happened to him in the past. He surely didn't think his life could get much worse. Usually a man of calm demeanour, a master of hiding his past torment, was broken by the weight of the situation, but still he felt compelled to reach out. "Ava, I don't know what has happened. I'm scared, Ava," he spluttered. "I'm sure you are too, but I hope you are okay." Colin poured out to Ava. Even after the loss of everything, he was still able to care about the lonely recluse. Colin was a quiet but caring character. He enjoyed trying to coax conversation out of Ava, as she was always purchasing canvases and acrylic paints. He was always interested in her little projects. I need to find my family," Ava replied, her voice quivering as she began to swell with tears again. "I think you should do the same." Colin pulled himself up, one hand cupping his groin as he stood. "Well, this isn't awkward, is it?" he joked, still with a lump in his throat. The pair looked around them. The people they knew from the shop were moving on, wandering aimlessly, and the crowds of people in front and all around were starting to settle, with few still hysterically screaming out and sobbing whilst getting their heads around the terrifying situation. "Where do we start?" Colin said, with a perplexed expression. He wiped the tears from his eyes and looked at Ava. "I never got to tell you this." His voice went somber. "I don't have any family, but I guess the best thing to do is to help you." A smile crept across his face, as if attempting to put Ava at ease. "Thank you, Colin," she simply replied, as she stared at the ground. Turning to Colin, she gave a confused expression of affirmation and began walking forward across the new meadow laid before them, and weaved through the crowds of anguished faces. And that's chapter 1. I don't know if I read that out loud well. I've never done that before, and I'm shaking like a leaf, but I felt so strongly that I needed to get this out. Holy crap, been going on for a while, but yeah. So if any feedback, it would be greatly appreciated. I think I read back an error in grammar at some point, which I'll alter, but if you could tell me what you think of the story and, well, the opening of it, that would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, thank you. And sayonara.